Hey everybody, this is Mr. George, and I wanted to put together a short video on ancient Mesopotamia and the city-state of Sumer. So Mesopotamia falls within our River Valley unit. In our course, we're going to be looking at 4 primary River Valley civilizations. So we have Mesopotamia, we have China, we have Indus Valley, and we have Egypt. So this unit falls within the context of characteristics of a civilization. So one acronym that I use to remember the 5 characteristics is CARAS, C-A-R-A-S. So here we're looking at C for complex institutions, A for advanced cities, R for record keeping, A for advanced technology, and S for specialized workers. Okay, so that's one way, might be easy way to remember those 5 characteristics that we're going to look at, not just within Mesopotamia and the other River Valley civilizations, but as we start to see the evolution of civilization and obviously even civilization today. So as we move ahead, so the word Mesopotamia comes from Greek words meaning land between the rivers. The rivers are the Tigris and the Euphrates. The first settlers to this region did not speak Greek. It was only thousands of years later that the Greek-speaking Alexander the Great, king of Macedonia, conquered this land and carried with him his culture. So when we talk about Mesopotamia and the Tigris and Euphrates, what we're looking at is really we're looking at present-day Iraq. So Mesopotamia is considered the cradle or beginning of civilization. Here, large cities lined the rivers and many advances took place. Mesopotamia at first glance doesn't look like an ideal place for a civilization to flourish, as it's hot and very dry and little rainfall in this area. However, the snow melting in the mountains at the source of these 2 rivers created this annual flooding, and the flooding deposited silt, which is very fertile, rich soils on the banks of the rivers every single year. And that's why Mesopotamia is part of the Fertile Crescent, this area of land in the Middle East that is rich in fertile soil and crescent shaped. So if you're watching this video on your own, at this point, you should be thinking about, tell me something about something that you already know about Mesopotamia, especially as many of you have already seen some of these topics in 6th grade. So those are kind of the positives of the flooding, providing like the fertile soil, and also flooding results in destruction here. So one of their tasks was to attempt to kind of control this water, and this is where we get irrigation. Okay, this is where we get irrigation, and this is where we also get the mobilization of people in an attempt to kind of not just control this water, but to be able to use this water to their advantage. Okay, so here's just an image here. When we talk about city-states, I guess an easy example would be, say, a United States city like Boston. So when you talk about Boston is, there's downtown Boston, there's like right in the heart of the city. And then part of Boston is also those neighborhoods or boroughs that are on the outskirts of the city. Say South Boston, Dorchester, Mattapan, West Roxbury, Hyde Park, as you kind of go around. So that would be like, a city-state would be, Boston, the downtown area, right in the heart of the city, where you tend to see lots of people, where you see markets, where you see activities, people gathering, and then along the outskirts is where you would see, people residing. So I guess that would be kind of like a contemporary example of, say a city-state. And when we move to Greece, you're going to also see this concept of like city-states, where city-states have different leaders and depending upon the civilization, they may have, same or dissimilar forms of government here. So one thing that you're going to see as we move from civilization to civilization is they are going to use the resources that are accessible to them. So when we talk about ziggurats, okay, we have these like large buildings that definitely served as some building of importance, okay, whether it's shrine to a deity, used to store things, used as a symbol, whether it's a central government. So when we see ziggurats, we see, some type of structure that has a purpose. So again, we talked about city-states. When we talked about these city-states, one thing about Mesopotamia is that there really are not a lot of natural barriers. So we're constantly seeing different groups coming in, and over time on our timeline, we start to see changes as far as who's taking over who because of these lack of natural barriers that they do have. At this point, you can pause the video, take a quick break, come back in 60 seconds. Hope you enjoyed your break here. So when we talk about government, whether it's in Sumer or whether it's in the United States, we talk about bureaucracy. Bureaucracy really means like levels. As an organization gets bigger, as you get a greater population, you have like different levels of like management. Okay, different levels with like different jobs. So as far as a scribe, that word is used now when you're in a meeting and someone needs to record something. They'll say, oh, you'll be the scribe. So a scribe is a person that's actually doing the record keeping because something needs to be tracked or kept track of. Okay, so here's a graphic that you can kind of like look at here. When we talk about cuneiform, that's an example of record keeping within Mesopotamian society here. Okay, so we get some symbols here, meanings along the top, and then we have this like ascending timeline along the left. Again, you can pause these videos as long as you need to be able to process that. So when we talk about polytheism, we're really talking about the belief in more than one god. Okay, so the Sumerians had a common language and believed in the same gods and goddesses. Okay, and because it's more than one, they were like polytheistic. Okay, there were 7 great city-states, each with its own king and a building. Again, we already talked about the ziggurat, that was that large pyramid-shaped building with a temple at the top that tended to be dedicated towards their Sumerian deity or god. Although these different city-states had much in common, again, they fought for control of this river water, which was a very valuable resource. And that's one reason why each city-state needed to have some type of like military or army to protect itself from neighbors. So at this point, let's do a quick check-in. You should be able to state and summarize the 5 characteristics of a civilization and see if you can provide one example of each of those characteristics related to Mesopotamia. So you can pause the video at this point. All right, so as we kind of move along here, when we talk about the economic life, we're really talking about, trade and the movement of products from one place to another. So, if you want to, you can pause this video and you can look at, we have the different trade routes that are in red, where you're going to see some land routes and you're going to see some water routes. And you're going to see products moving from one place to another based on the desires and needs, as well as the resources that either groups have or do not have. So when we talk about social classes, social classes develop within civilizations once we start to see that you have a population, you need some type of hierarchy or levels or system of ranks. And once people move away from, okay, we no longer need to hunt and gather food, we can grow our own food. Now we start to see that we have extra time. It frees up time for people to do other things. So within Mesopotamia, we really have, 3 different levels of individuals, and within each level, we have certain designated positions or jobs as far as, society. So when we talk about these advancements, again, within civilizations, some civilizations advance, and then some civilizations at some point, plateau, and then some civilizations decline. So, learning and the acquisition of knowledge all ties in with these characteristics of a civilization, because through the acquisition of knowledge, you're able to apply these things. So you're able to build buildings. You're able to create some type of system or calendar structure. You'll be able to record things. So one of the stories that we look at in our course is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is a story of a king who really goes through the hero's journey as far as his call to adventure, and then comes back, through these challenges, obstacles, and then atonement, and then some type of lesson on the back end. So this was done in the form of cuneiform, which was the example of record keeping for Mesopotamia. And again, when we start to see a civilization, one reason we see this is, again, because of the lack of natural barriers, constant state of war, and then we start to see, what happens when the person in charge is no longer alive, where we have these questions of succession, and then ultimately at some point we start to see a decline within a civilization. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video today, and thank you for watching.